Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening in tonight. It's good to hang out with you. I really appreciate your time. And before we kick off the discussion, so I'm very excited to announce that starting this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, uh, Todd Williams and Todd is our IT guy who runs this thing and has been my co-host on our podcast. It's called Taproot: Marshalling Liberty, and we joke about toddling liberty. But anyway, so Taproot, the idea of which is to reach all the way back to the deep recesses, the far past of Western civilization to find the concept of human liberty and figure out what it means, where it comes from, what it's worth, why it's worth defending, and all that sort of thing. So we did 13 episodes, hour-long episodes on our own, and then recently got picked up for a half-hour live episode, which will then be posted online, hosted by the GCD network. And we're pretty excited about that. Would really like for you guys to sign up as you know to follow the program. Every Sunday we're going to do this 6:30 p.m. I realize a lot of you are in evening worship and all that kind of stuff on Sunday evenings, and I respect that. But this was the time slot that was available for us. So I hope y'all can tune in on that. That's 6:30 every Sunday night, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, every Sunday evening on the GCD network. And of course, we'll be posting the link to the actual show all over the place. So just keep an eye open for that. It hasn't been assigned yet, but it will be soon. All right, so the marriage of heaven and hell. What we're not going to do here tonight, because we just don't have time for it, is a full literary analysis of the marriage of heaven and hell by William Blake. But also, I would like to bring it. There's a certain strand of an idea that I'd like to draw out of that, and then also that same sort of an idea coming from Paradise Lost by John Milton, and then also found in Utopia by Thomas More. So I'm not going to obviously read aloud the works. You guys can find them online. They're easily locatable online. You just look them up. We're not going to delve too much into what it's all about, just this one idea. And so if you will stick with me for just a second, that idea is kind of summed up. Now, keep in mind, this is Satan speaking, the character Satan in Paradise Lost, book 1. Let me see, it's line 250 or so in book 1 of Paradise Lost by John Milton. Again, this is Lucifer talking, okay? So you have to understand that Milton is not presenting this as a great truth, but rather as a great lie that is held to by Lucifer, and which actually led to his decline and fall, and will lead, to his condemnation, and leads to the decline, fall, and condemnation of all other people who follow him, of all the the angels who followed him, and then also all human beings who choose to follow him. Religious beliefs, all that stuff is not really the point. The point is these lines by Lucifer. He says, he's talking about being in hell, which is separation from all that is good and right and just and all that sort of thing. And he says, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. It's worth ambition, though in hell. He says, let me back up just a little bit. We shall be free. The Almighty hath not built here for his envy, will not drive us hence. So what that means is we're free from God. We're free from all that's right and true and good. Okay? That's what Lucifer is saying here. We have found a place where God does not choose to dwell. God has not made himself present. And because we have chosen to separate ourselves from him, we are now free from his influence, from his power, from his reign. And he won't drive us out of here because he doesn't want this place. Here in hell, we may reign secure. And in my choice, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. No matter what we suffer, no matter what losses there are, no matter how bad it is here, he is saying, Lucifer is saying that it is better to live in a place where things are not good, where we're all suffering, where there's misery and heartache. It is better to live in that and to be in charge than it is to submit to truth and justice and the principles of goodness and instead have to serve. In my choice, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Okay, so I'm not here to preach at you. This is not a Bible lesson. This is not about religion. This is about politics. And the idea that's expressed here is the character in Paradise Lost is saying that it is better, that his preference is to be the guy in charge, no matter how miserable it makes him or anybody else. That's the idea I want to follow. So, if you guys have heard the term utopia, you should know where it comes from. It is Sorry about that, folks. Technical difficulties. Thanks, Heidi, for jumping in. All right, so we're talking about Utopia by Thomas More. So we've all heard of utopia. You know, it's a very common term in postmodern American culture. But where it comes from is a book by Thomas More, which commonly is just called Utopia. But the actual name of it in Latin is De Optimo Re Republica Statu Dece Nova Insula Utopia. Utopia. Not Oitopia. Oitopia, it doesn't matter what it means. Anyway, it literally means utopia. Literally means no place. So it's the best state of a republic and the new island of utopia. So basically, what Thomas More is saying, and once again, we're not going to get into serious literary analysis. We just don't have time for that. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can read it, but for right now, just work with me here. So the idea is that men can build a paradise on earth in a place called Utopia. And the funny thing is, Utopia literally means nowhere. So I hope you understand that satire. That's Thomas More talking about how men would build a utopia, build a perfect place, a paradise for themselves, and it would be no place. And frankly, that would be the best of all possible answers, because the utopias that men have tried to build throughout civilization have actually turned into killing fields and ovens and gulags. So that's what men create when they attempt to create a utopia. Now, the thing is that a lot of people seem to think that the founding fathers were trying to create heaven on earth, and they were not. They were not. What they were trying to do was create a place where men could be free. And the thing is, they recognized that we're all corrupt. As a matter of fact, they talked about the fact that if we were not corrupt, we would not need a government. And unfortunately, the government is formed of men, all of whom are corrupt. So if you give them absolute power to form a society as they will, as their vision of a utopia, what they end up doing is creating hell on earth. That's the idea. And the closest thing we can get to paradise on earth, almost heaven, is when we allow all men to be free. Now, of course, that's not heaven. It's not anywhere close to heaven, but it's a lot farther from hell than having a small group of people who are imposing their ideas of perfection on other people. C.S. Lewis talks about the idea that there's no greater tyranny than that which is exercised for the benefit of those who are being tyrannized. So he also talks quite a bit about, just punishment versus treatment. So the idea here is that when you do something wrong, if there's a punishment, that if you steal from Farmer Bob, you're going to go to jail for 5 years for stealing from Farmer Bob. If you kill somebody, you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. That is just and relevant punishment, right? But if you're being treated as if your corruption is an illness that can be cured, well, they can keep working on you until they cure you, which will be never, because none of us will ever be cured until we leave this place, until we move on, right? So the idea here is that any attempt by men to create a perfect world will necessarily end in great bloodshed and suffering. Necessarily. Because we don't know how to do it. Because the only thing we can think of is to usurp the authority of God, right? To usurp the authority of God, to call ourselves a government, and then to impose the will of the government as though it were the will of God onto the people. All right. So this is what the idea of church and state really is. You separate church from state because the church is the emissary of the true paradise, right? And the state is merely this attempt to keep us all in check. Now, I don't like the idea of being held in check any more than the rest of you do. But we're all corrupt. The problem, once again, is this government is formed of corrupt people as well. So what you're trying to do in most governments is to marry heaven and hell. You're trying to get as close to paradise as you can here in this corrupt place, in this fallen world where all men are corrupt. And the best that you can do is to keep all men free so they can pursue truth and justice and goodness in the best way they know how. Unfortunately, because we're all corrupt, many people have no idea how to pursue truth or justice. And frankly, even though I might think that I have a good idea how to do it, I have no right to impose my thoughts or my ideas on you, my perception of what's good and true and right. The only thing we can allow our government to do is to secure our rights to pursue paradise, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness, paradise. The government is here to protect each one of us in our rights, in our beings, so that we each pursue goodness in the best way that we know how. And it's only in pursuing goodness in the best way that we know how, pursuing paradise in the best way that we know how, that we learn that none of our ideas of paradise actually work. And we begin to see there has to be something beyond all of this, that someone smarter and better and more pure and good than us has to be the one who holds the keys to paradise, you see. So what's really going on is when you have a government that tries to build paradise for people, what that government is actually doing is usurping the role of God. It's really a very simple concept. And once they've usurped the role of God, they then usurp his prerogatives. It's his prerogative to make or unmake us. It's his prerogative to deal with us as he will. It's his prerogative to make us into something other than what we are because he made us in the first place, right? So what you have now is you have this idea that exists in government that they can create a new world by creating new men. I hope you heard what I just said. They believe that they have the right, the prerogative, the power, the capability, and the authority to create a new world, a new and better world, by creating new and better men. You know, if they were better men than we are, that might actually be something worth considering. But the fact of the matter is they're not better men than we are. They are not better men than any average man out there walking around. The people who aggregate themselves to power, especially centralized power, are by definition not better men than the ones who simply want to live quiet, peaceful lives. Now, I know. Every time I say that, someone accuses me of being a hypocrite. And in all honesty, I have to admit I am a completely imperfect man, and there is some hypocrisy that I have spoken in my life. But this is not hypocrisy because I'm admitting it. You see, I'm admitting that I want political power so that I can then use that political power to make the world a better place. And to make that world a better place by compelling some men to behave in a certain way. Allow me to explain why my intent is different, if you will. Because my intent is to use the power of government to compel the government to secure your natural rights and to protect you from compulsion and otherwise leave you alone. I believe that is the only righteous purpose for government. And I realize that I am sitting in a position where I have said that the desire to control other men, that a corrupt man's desire to control other men is a bad thing and needs to be ended. That should never exist. That's completely unacceptable. And I'm saying, I recognize I'm a corrupt man and I want the power. I want you, the voters of West Virginia, the good people of West Virginia, to give me the power to compel a certain group of people to behave in a certain way. The group of people that I want to use your power to compel, your authority to compel to behave, is the people who serve in your government. And I want to compel them to behave in such a way that all they do, their entire work, their entire profession, their entire focus on their career is all about ensuring that your natural rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to pursue paradise rather than utopia, true paradise rather than utopia, something imposed on you from above. My entire intent is to take the power and authority that you give me to compel others who work in the government to exercise their power, the power and authority that you have entrusted to them, for the one purpose of securing your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness, and that of your children and your grandchildren. So, yeah, it may look like a catch-22. It may look like hypocrisy, but see, the difference is that I am not trying to impose paradise on anyone. I am trying to prevent the imposition of anyone else's idea of paradise on anyone. I have some very distinct ideas about what paradise should look like. And I know by experience, by reading, by study, that I'm wrong. that I can't possibly know what paradise is in toto, or how I should how it should be imposed on others. What I do know is that none of us should try to impose that on the other using the power of government. Now, to discuss, to attempt to convince, absolutely. Free marketplace of ideas is a wonderful thing. We can all learn from it. What we don't need is someone picking up the sword of government and trying to impose paradise on other people, whatever they think that paradise is. Because inevitably, what they're doing is creating hell on earth. So that's kind of the idea there. I highly recommend these three works to you. I highly recommend that you read them in the vein in which they're intended, that you understand that Utopia is a satire, that Paradise Lost. The idea here is that, Satan is speaking, Lucifer is speaking as Lucifer, and you have to understand the perspective from which Lucifer would speak. So it's very important you understand what's really being said, and who the speaker is. But highly recommend these three works to you. And man, I misspelled heaven. I'm sorry. The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Heaven. Heaven. So here we are in almost heaven, and we are progressively making it more of a utopia than of a paradise. So it's becoming less and less of almost heaven and more of a totalitarian state. And of course, a lot of people will say, Wilson, you're going off the deep end, you're getting too excited, blah, blah, blah. Well, what we could do is we could wait until we're in the position that there is no turning back, as many people have done throughout human history, and just say, wow, that's really messed up. I'm sorry these things happen, but it's too late to do anything about them. Or we can see them coming. We can do the analysis. We can think. We can pay attention to what's really going on, to what people are really saying, who are in these positions of authority that we have delegated to them, and come to understand that what they're really saying is, we know better than you do. We are smarter, we are better, we are more honorable, and we will make your decisions for you. You chose us to do that for you. And I don't know about you guys, but when I vote for someone, I am not choosing that guy to do anything for me except to serve as my messenger that my rights are inviolate. Anything else that he's doing, I didn't send him there. I didn't vote for him for that. As a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point recently where I don't really vote for anybody. I vote against people because they keep saying to vote for the lesser of two evils. Well, because we have this paradigm where we have these two powers, these two cartels, these two political mobs that own all of the influence, or the preponderance of the influence in the political sphere in our country. Sooner or later, it gets down to the point where you just have to pick the lesser of two evils, and they're doing that on purpose. It's intentional that they're driving us to that. Okay. I want you to understand that. So here's the thing. Doesn't have to be that way. It's only that way because we allow it. It's the only reason it's that way. Now they have buffaloed us and they have lied to us and they say things like, well, I just don't know how it could be any different. It's always been this way. It hasn't always been this way. And it doesn't have to be this way. And you don't have to put up with it. But there are people who run these cartels who sincerely believe that they have more of a right to determine what direction your life should go than you do. They have the authority to determine what your children should do with their lives, how your children should live, what your children should look like, what they should eat, where they should work, where they should go to school, what they should learn in school, what their worldview should be. They honestly believe that this is their right, that they own you. They're trying to impose their idea of heaven on you, a paradise. And it will very soon become a horrific, it's going to become hell. Go back, take a look at all of the totalitarian regimes that have ever existed, even the ones that didn't really become totalitarian, but ended up with a small group of people who held way more power than they should have. Anytime power is aggregated, the people who actually sit in the positions, sit in the chairs where that power is aggregated, tend to believe that they are better than you are and that they have more right. Because they have more powerful, they believe they have more right. They're not more right, and they don't have more right. They have no authority except that which you delegate to them. Stop it. Stop it now. All right. Thank you. I would really love to talk about these a lot more, and all three of these, each of these three. Dave, good point. Dave Freeman says paradise is only guaranteed by one man, and man is not the one. Guaranteed by one, and man is not the one. I agree wholeheartedly. Again, like I said, though, this is not a religious discussion. However, I will go back, thanks to Dave for bringing this idea up, go back and say that it is incredibly important for our liberty and for our well-being and for our prosperity and security and happiness and all that kind of stuff, that we understand that there is a power beyond government, that government is not the ultimate power. Government is just a bunch of guys who are doing things with the power that you give them and with the authority that you give them. That's all they are, just a bunch of guys. They're not terribly smart people, and they're certainly not the most honorable and worthy people around. I mean, do you understand? Do you understand what kind of a person will step up to you and say, I'm better than you? Give me authority over your life so that I can make the world better for you. I know what kind of people it takes to do that because I get it. I've been there. I've been amongst them. And frankly, I have done that. I have stepped up and said, I understand how to make the world a better place for you. I've said it. I'm saying it right now. And the way is to take away the government's power, because they don't care about authority. They've already gotten to the point where they're not interested in documented authority. They have become authoritarians. They have seized all authority. They have presumed all authority because they have all power now. They have way too much power. So we have to take away the power that they have to own us. Yes, I believe that will make your life better. I will believe that it will make the world a better place. Do you understand what it takes for a human being to be able to arrive at the point where he honestly believes that he knows better than everybody else? It's a scary place for an honest man to be. It's not scary for dishonest people. Unfortunately, there aren't that many honest people around, and the few who are around will absolutely eschew this kind of authority, this kind of power, because it's the last thing an honest man wants. The only thing I can say in my defense is I don't want it. But by God, somebody's got to do this. Somebody has to step up and make these statements and hold to these principles and absolutely declare that there is a power beyond government. And that power will be answered by government, by the people in government, by each one of us individually. That's all there is to it. So a few years ago, Hillsdale had a very God-free series on. Becky, I'm not sure what that means. If you want to clarify what that is, I'd be happy to hear about it. Oh, a very God-free series on specifically on the marriage of heaven and hell and Paradise Lost, right? God-free series on Dante and Paradise Lost. Okay, well, I don't know how they would have why Hillsdale would have a very God-free anything, but it's interesting. If you want to clarify that, I'd be happy to read up on that. So I realize I'm getting really esoteric and philosophical here, and I apologize for that because it makes it very hard to. Okay, I don't understand what Goodwill Librarian means either, Becky. Can you clarify what you're saying about Hillsdale's course? I would love to address that. And I hope that if you're catching some of the frustration in my voice, that you'll forgive me. But it seems to me so pressing, so important, and so prescient, so imminent. Like this weight of this idea is pressing down on all of us. And I think looking around me that I can see that everybody feels it, everybody knows it, and yet very few have actually taken the time or the effort to formulate the specific thought, which is that these people believe they own us. And they are trying to force us into a corral, and then they will release us into a world they've created for us, which is nothing more than a feedlot before the slaughterhouse. And I hope y'all understand that. Okay, a few years ago, Hillsdale had a very good free series on Dante and Paradise Lost. Okay, that sounds great. Sounds good. If you have any more to say about that, please do. I'm sure most of what Hillsdale does is pretty good and compelling. So, am I making sense? Can y'all give me some feedback so I know whether or not I've actually made a point that that is useful to you, or whether it sounds like I'm simply blithering and ranting, because every now and then I feel like I kind of rant a bit, and that's not my intent. I intend to actually make sense. Good, detailed, and well presented. Good. Thanks, Becky, for the recommendation. I'll try to look it up. Got a thumbs up from Dave. I guess that means that what I've said makes some sort of sense. Dave's a pretty bright guy, so if he got it, I can't be messing up too good. Thank you, Miss Catherine. Okay. All right. So this is what we're actually dealing with. See, we all think because we want to. Hey, Mike. Again, this is Mike McGee. He was my best friend in high school. He knows who I really am and where I'm really from. So, there is no faking. I can't get away with anything around that guy. Not that I ever try to. I've never tried to get away with anything, to be honest with you. Not since I was a kid, and my dad made sure I got away with nothing. But anyway, I'm glad Mike's here, and y'all are free to ask him any questions about who I am and what I say and what I really believe and how I actually behave, because he was there when I was figuring it all out. He was there as I became what I am. So the real point here is that we have to understand that it is not about making sure that your party is in power. This is not about winning a particular election. This is about understanding the strategic battlefield that you are on. You have to understand that even when the people who want to make the world a world that sounds good to you, even the ones who believe they can remake men to be a way that you think men should be, what you have to understand is they still want to remake men. They still want to remake the world, and they don't have the right, and they don't have the wisdom, and they are not good people. My entire purpose here is not to make the world what I want it to be, right? It is to simply make the government something that's incapable of being used by people to impose their will upon others. That's my intent. It's not to use the government to do great things for everybody. The government doesn't exist to do great things for everybody. The government exists for one purpose, that is to secure your natural rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and those of your kids and your grandkids. Anything else it does is wrong and oppressive. And the more of that it does, the closer it gets to utopia, which actually is the feedlot before the slaughterhouse. All right? Let's stay out of the feedlot. Let's stay out of the slaughterhouse. Let's remain free. Let's not let them make the world better for us. They don't know how. All they know how to do is lie. They're so good at it, they've convinced themselves that they're right. Don't trust anyone. Do not say, well, this guy's on my side, or I met this guy and he seemed nice. He shook my hand. He remembered my kid's name. None of that matters. That's all kabuki theater, folks. All that matters is, do they realize that you have delegated to them a tiny, minuscule part of your authority for the singular point, for the singular purpose of securing the natural rights of your children, grandchildren, and yourself? I mean, I had a guy on Facebook today who went off on me and says, you don't talk about what you're going to do. Yes, I do. I will audit the entire executive branch, starting with CPS and going through every single department, every single function, every single office, every single position, and auditing them for that purpose. There's Roger. There you go. I'm actually telling you, Roger, and I've said this so many times I can't count. I have been saying this since, probably 2017, 2018. And I've said it very publicly in a number of venues, and it's been recorded and reported on and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know why anybody would think that I haven't been clear about this. What needs to happen is an audit of every single function of the executive branch of the state government for constitutionality, legality, fiscal responsibility, operations, and personnel. And once that audit is complete and the necessary changes are made, it also needs to be, the department and the personnel in that department need to be retrained on customer service, because you own them. It's not the other way around. All right. So, y'all hit me with some questions. Mike, what are you thinking about, man? Nothing. Sounds good. All right. So I feel like I'm repeating myself. And if I keep repeating myself, I'll work myself into a lather and start ranting, which could be really entertaining for all of you, especially maybe Roger. But the simple fact is, I have stated clearly that my intent is to dismantle the structure of the government that allows them to impose any act on us, except preventing us from imposing any act on each other. And then I will do that by auditing every single department according to its function, according to its legality. Auditing the West Virginia executive does not address the Nash. Well, Roger, as I told you to your face that day we sat there in that restaurant, I absolutely intend to place my body between you and the federal government. If they want to come and take your weapons, they will have to come through me. If they want us to execute their will here, they will have to come and impose their will with force, because they're not going to get me to play along with them. I've said that clearly for years. All right. Okay, again, I'd like to remind y'all that Sunday, starting this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be doing, Todd Williams and I will be doing a nationwide podcast, half-hour podcast, continuing the podcast we did for 13 episodes, each an hour long. These will be a half-hour long. We'll continue Taproot on the GCD network. As soon as I have a link to the specific, to bring you to our specific podcast, I will publish that. But we're really looking forward to it. And Todd says that the 30-minute time limit being imposed on me is good for everybody. And I think he's probably right. But y'all tune in. I'll give you the link as soon as I can. I really appreciate your time tonight. And for those who are going to listen to this later, please type your comments below, tag me in them so I know that you've commented and I can come back and respond. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. Yes, there you go, Catherine. So, okay. So let me go ahead and address that real quick. It is absolutely my intent, my strategic vision to establish in West Virginia a bastion of liberty, that will become not only an example to the other states of how it can be done, but also a haven for people to come to who want to live free. And that includes businesses and, just good people who want to live free. And because West Virginia has such a small population at this point, right now is the moment when we can make this happen, when we can turn this tiny ship before it becomes too lost, because this ship can turn around. We're not a huge super carrier like California is. We're a small boat and we can turn around. So we can do it here, show everybody else how to do it, and then become a training ground for people from other states to learn how to do it in their states. All right. I appreciate y'all more than I can tell you. Hope you have a good night. I'm going to go to summer lacrosse meeting and learn about my parental duties as the father of a lacrosse player in the summer leagues. Y'all take care. Thank you very much.